Industrial Revolution's impact on World War I. So for the introduction, the Industrial Revolution, when it came about, primarily, yes, you have industrialization going on, but as I was doing research, I realized that changes throughout all areas of life throughout this time period were happening, whether it was technology, communication, industry, education, trade, science, even religion. So there's really no question that industrialization impacted society greatly. However, my question started to form as, could the Industrial Revolution, which, let's say starting from the late 1700s, impact events about 150 years later, specifically World War I? And so my thesis was the Industrial Revolution that took place across American Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries brought much significance throughout the 20th century by defining the First Global War, the Great War or World War I. So, the start of industrialization. So technically the first industrial revolution occurred in Great Britain. A lot of scholars looked at why Great Britain, and so they came to the conclusion that it was unique. It was a very self-involved country. They didn't really care much about other countries gaining power, industrialization. They were very self-focused on their own, gaining for power. And also, they had advancements in ideas, knowledge, and entrepreneurialism. And then they also, in addition to this, they had the freedom to do such things. Whereas in other countries, there wasn't as much freedom in Europe. And so with their location and their already set power, this idea of British imperialism emerged. So from mid-1700s, we're now moving into the early to mid-1800s where industrialization hit America. And so now we have the sense of old America becoming new. And definitely in communication, transportation, which eventually led to also economic expansion. And so briefly, I just wanted to give an idea of what's going on. So we have telegraphs and telephones. We have the assembly lines also. We have the idea of interchangeable parts, which was greatly important. And we also have railways being constructed and canal building and the steam engines. So America's now catching up. And because America's catching up, the American people, they want the government to get involved. They want the government to support this new industrialization. And so we have imports and exports also increasing. And what's really important is also we have now foreign affairs being established. And so because of this, we also are realizing the need for greater national security, especially the Navy for protection. So comparing the 18th century versus the 19th century, in the 18th century, all the countries basically had the idea that there could only be one winner, and then, everyone else they would lose, whether it resulted in several losers, one loser, but there could only be one winner. And now we have globalization going on, so countries are becoming more independent of one another. And so by the 19th century, we now have this idea that everyone can win if peace is maintained. So throughout Europe, the increasing industrialization was expanding commerce and investment. Now, of course, peace can only be maintained for so long. And so because of the power rising from the Industrial Revolution, we have tension and competition rising as well. So even though Europe was still dominating, they were now seeing America as a threat. And Britain was also starting to become weak and alone because because they were so self-involved in their own success, they didn't really have anyone to fall back on, as now they're starting to lose their power as America's catching up. And so the shift in power also pushed Britain to seek allies. And so also we have going on, Germany is also advancing as well, especially in their military. So before we get to World War I just wanted to look at really what's going on around the world. And so a couple of things I wanted to point out was that Germany was now caught up with France and Britain with industrialization, and we also had Russia also catching up. And America finally was starting to lead. We also had Great Britain. Ever since, even prior to this, Great Britain always kind of felt the need to keep order and peace among Europe. And unfortunately, because of this kind of big brother role, they were very involved in other countries' affairs, such as Germany. And so what we see is Germany and Britain, they're starting to clash. So still before World War I, we have allies already starting to form. We have, once the assassination of Ferdinand and Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and so we see all these countries starting to fall into play about declaring war on other countries and so forth because of their allies. So then we result into Central Powers and allies, which eventually at the end was Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey being the Central Powers, and then allies included France, Italy, and Japan, Great Britain, Russia, and the United States. And so, of course, another impact that the Industrial Revolution also had was their great technology advancements. We had tanks, machine guns, flamethrowers, we had air bombers, we had deflector planes, we had the first use of poisonous gases, the 1911 hand pistol, and yeah, so we had a lot of technology advancements. So basically my conclusion was that the Industrial Revolution provided, of course, the technology advancements. What was really interesting to me though, because I never really thought about it, was also its great impact on the whole globalization, and countries are now becoming interdependent of one another, and then we also building relationships and allies emerging, and of course the communication and transportation. And all of this pretty much defined how the First World War would play out, how it would be fought, even who was fighting against who. So it was really interesting to me. And that's it.
Very nice. Questions for Kaylyn? I think it was really nicely connected. Very nice job.